Hello and welcome to the Mad Tower, broadcasting to you live from Delta Golf 51734266. I'm joined by my co-host Christian. As always, we spend a week doing independent research on some sort of conspiracy or cryptid and present each other with our findings on this show so we can broaden our knowledge of cryptids, conspiracies, urban legends, anything that just seems to break the norm. Christian, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Well, in the second grade, I read a book about, I believe it was the Bermuda Triangle, and then I imagined my life as a cryptozoologist for about 5 years.
5 years?
For a long time. I was like, I could do it. I could be one of those dudes who wears khaki shorts every day and just takes Bigfoot photos.
I'm not going to lie to you. If I could go to college and make a career out of cryptozoology, I definitely would.
Do you think you'd approach it from this biology, this studied, learned side, or you'd just be a fucking conspiracy nut?
I mean, I'll do whatever if I can get paid to be a cryptozoologist. That'd be a pretty sick job.
When did you first start to be like, yeah, aliens and the Slender Man are cool?
I don't know. I always joked about it, but back in high school, probably midway through high school, I was like, there's a lot about the world that we still just don't know. I was like, yeah, I mean, I'm no authority to say, that's not real. And I don't think anyone else is either. So.
Was there an individual incident where you were like, wait a minute, that doesn't make sense? Was there one story or one conspiracy?
No. I think it just comes from, my desire to believe that there's still an air of mystery in the world and there's still stuff that we don't know.
Okay. No, that makes sense.
That thing where it's born too late to explore the world, born too early to explore space.
Yeah. No, that make we're right in that weird world. You can understand and know ostensibly anything with the internet, but how much do you actually know?
Yeah, and I don't want to believe that there's nothing left to explore or discover, or that there's nothing cool out there.
How much of that curiosity do you personally attribute to things like creepypastas?
I mean, creepypastas are cool, but they're creepypastas. I mean,
I got you. But they can they can be the seed to make you look for something else,
They can be. I'd say they can be a seed for sure, but I don't know. I mean, it sounds pretentious to be no, there's a difference because both could be made up, but I don't know. Maybe the only difference is hysteria.
I mean, hopefully today, as we'll see, some of these have a little more backing to them. So when you were going and doing your research for your topic, what were the your first things that you looked for? What drew you for credible information on these topics?
Oh, so this one was a bitch. Cause all right, I'll just go ahead and spoil the topic. I decided to bring Lyme disease, the Lyme disease conspiracy. And that one stuck out to me because I grew up in rural forested Illinois, which is every summer I'd go out to play in the woods and Mom would be like, hey, when you get home I gotta check you for ticks. And I'm like, why? She's like, do you want to get Lyme disease? And I was like, what the hell is Lyme disease?
Me too. I lived in Lyme disease fear as a child, so when you said that your first topic was going to be Lyme disease, I didn't know what I was getting into.
Oh, this thing's a trip. The conspiracy. Okay, let me start off by this was really hard to put together and comb through the information. most of the conspiracy comes from a man called Dr. Michael Carroll, who wrote a book called Lab 257, The Secrets of Plum Island, or something like that. And it seemed that, like, most of his information for the conspiracy was in his book, but I'm not going to pay $8, and you shouldn't make me pay $8 if you have the truth. You can't lock the truth behind a paywall, buddy. But, so trying to find stuff independent of his research into it, it was kind of hard, but I feel like I got enough stuff to maybe turn your head, or at least maybe make you think that a little bit of something is there.
Okay, so do you want to jump right in and reveal the truth to me about Lyme disease?
Yeah, I will, but I wanted to start off with this conspiracy. When I heard it, it was fucking crazy, because when I was a kid, I went out to my buddy's cabin for, like, his grandma's cabin for, like, a weekend. And it was in the middle of, like, deep-ass woods, and we would just have free reign of his grandma's property with, like, four-wheelers and fucking, like, BB guns and shit. And it was fun as fuck. And, I remember when I got back, I laid on the couch, and it felt like I had a bruise on my back. So I went to my 7-year-old sister and lifted up my shirt, and I was like, hey, does it look like I have a giant bruise right here? I was like 9 at the time, and she's like, yeah, it just looks like a bruise. And I was like, all right, I trust the 7-year-old. Then, like, a week later, it was like a Saturday, and my mom comes in my room. She's like, what the hell is that on your back? I'm like, a bruise. She's like, no, it's not. And I'm like, oh, well, what is it? And she's like, it's a tick. And I was like, oh no. So I thought I was dead. Like, I thought that was the end. So we ended up going to the hospital, and the doctor was like, well, there's only one thing we can really do, and that is just cut it out with scalpels.
Oh my god.
So, like, 9-year-old me is just laying on my stomach while this doctor is just stabbing into my back trying to get a tick out. And that was a pretty horrifying experience. So that's why I wanted to talk about Lyme disease.
I've never been tick-stricken, as far as I can tell. Do they get, like, fat, like, big, engorged on your blood?
They do. They will get engorged on your blood and just chill. And they're like nigh invincible. Like, you can...
Is it true that, like, you can chop their heads off and they'll still stay there or something? Like...
Yeah, so once they get, like, rooted in there, if they get deep enough, like, you're fucked. Because you can tear the body away from the head, but, like... That's it. If you tear the body away from the head, the tick is like, I don't give a fuck, and will just grow a new body. They're fucking disgusting, horrendous creatures, and I hate them.
So it fueled your research today?
Yes. And it is in my belief that the U.S. Army experimented with using these ticks as a vector for a biological weapon, and that biological weapon is Lyme disease. That's my claim. That's my thesis.
Okay.
All right. So the first case of Lyme disease in Connecticut was in Lyme, Connecticut, in 1975. Right. The actual disease itself comes from the bacteria Borrelia burgdorferi. It's transmitted by ticks. And I got a case map that I'm gonna send you later on, but we'll get there. We'll get there.
That image, the first time you showed me a glance of that, I started to get a little sus about Lyme disease. I also didn't know it was a disease that started in, like, the 70s. I thought since time, like, George Washington was like, watch out, troops, there's Lyme disease out there. I didn't know it was, like, a 30-year-old disease.
Yep, 1975 was the first case. All these kids would be like, they'd be getting sick as hell, and they would just be like, the doctors were like, I don't know what it is. Because if you didn't know, Lyme disease has the nickname the Great Imitator because it produces flu-like symptoms and symptoms of arthritis, meningitis, bipolar, Alzheimer's.
Oh my God.
It can attack multiple systems and organs at the same time. It is called the Great Imitator. So for the longest time, they weren't able to fucking diagnose all these kids in Lyme, Connecticut because the doctors were just like, I don't fucking know. So let's go to the beginning, right? Plum Island. It's off the coast. It's like in the, I don't know what you'd call that area, but it's the New England Bay around like Connecticut, New York. I don't know what it's called, but it's like right over there. It's like an hour ferry's ride away from the shores of Connecticut to Plum Island. Plum Island has a history extending back to the American Revolution. It's been used mostly for military fortifications and purposes and shit like that. But back in the 1950s, it was owned by the U.S. Army Chemical Corps and the U.S. Department of Agriculture. They decided they were going to use it for research into zoonotic diseases. You know what a zoonotic disease is?
That sounds like an animal-carried disease.
Yeah, zoonotic disease is pretty much a disease that can be transferred from animals to humans.
Yeah.
Because after World War II, the U.S. feared an attack on their livestock. So the focus of their research there was, allegedly, the focus of their research there was foot and mouth disease. Have you ever heard of that?
Yeah, but can you give me a rundown of how great foot and mouth disease is?
Basically, it'll just wipe livestock right the fuck out.
And this is 1970s, like rampant Cold War era fear.
This is in the 50s. They opened up the Plum Island Animal Disease Center is the name of the thing they're working on there. Public, not allowed there.
Okay.
Media, also not allowed there. The first time the media was allowed there was not until 1992. So
had facilities since been moved or relocated when people started to go to the island?
I can't really find any information on what like happened there, but not like what happened there. I know what happened there, but like there wasn't like really detailed admin information like that.
Gotcha.
Like, oh, in 1956 we moved this building to this building, but pretty much in the 70s they opened up a veterinarian lab, so that they could still study all these fucking diseases that can be transferred and shit. It's pretty cool. And that's pretty much it. A lot of Dr. Michael Carroll's conspiracy was about this mystical building 257, and it honestly didn't seem like that much of research or that much of a crazy claim to me, because like it's just a building, like it doesn't have any significance except maybe that's where the research took place, but I don't know. It just didn't seem that important to me when I was researching this. So that's the groundwork for what was going on with Lyme disease. That's like its little background. Here's some interesting facts about Lyme disease that I don't think have a correlation, but I just wanted to include them anyway. Lyme disease, right? There's 30,000 cases a year. And out of those 30 cases, 1,200 commit suicide as a result of their Lyme disease.
1,200?
Out of the 30,000 cases a year, 1,200 take their own life.
Yeah, from your symptoms and from what you said, it sounds like it just attacks your mind.
It attacks everything.
Like you're like something about like
yeah, something about
the
like
bipolar, like that. All that thing made it seem like it's like a mental disease as much as it is a physical disease.
exactly like why are you getting meningitis symptoms and at the same time bipolar symptoms?
Now, let it be known, not a doctor, but it's kind of overly aggressive in my mind for what a disease does. Like usually it'll attack one aspect of the body, or it has a number of like related symptoms. I don't know off the top of my head many diseases where it's like, oh, your gut starts to hurt and also you develop hallucinations, like these crazy two different sides to it, or what's interesting to me.
It feels like something they'd build in Plague Inc.
Yeah, exactly. Like you're choosing your symptoms for whether it's, to ruin Soviet lives or something.
Yeah. Now, the people who are obviously paid off by the government to keep this under wraps, they say that Borrelia burgdorferi has been around. Like that was discovered long before Lyme disease was ever diagnosed. I think it was back in like the 1800s, but like it's just a bacteria. Bacteria can evolve like it can evolve like way faster, that's why we have to get like a new flu vaccine every year and shit like that.
Are they trying to say that this disease has existed and it's turned into its more dangerous strain that is Lyme disease today?
No, I think they're just saying we were too dumb to diagnose it back then.
Gotcha.
Which I guess, but like no cases, nobody discovered Lyme disease before 1975. Was it like cancer in the 1400s where they just called it the death?
Yeah.
I find that very hard to believe. But yeah, so that's the groundwork. In the 1950s, they opened up the Plum Island Animal Disease Center to study foot and mouth, allegedly. And the U.S. Army Chemical Corps was there, and the U.S. Department of Agriculture. They're working there. Oh, here's another very interesting one that I think does correlate. So 60% of chronic Lyme patients are also co-infected with several strains of Mycoplasma, the most common one being Mycoplasma fermentans. I don't know what that means. So I told Jess this last night. I was like, hey, what's Mycoplasma fermentans? And she's like, send me the Wikipedia article. So I did, and it was like, she basically said, it's just really good at being hard to kill. So interesting thing about Mycoplasma fermentans, it was patented in 1993 by the U.S. Army pathologist Dr. Lowe.
I don't like anything that you just said. Like army doctors patenting these things.
I didn't know you could patent a bacteria, but
yeah, what? For what purpose? To what end?
I don't know. Don't want any infringement on your biological weapon, right? So let's go to the other side of this conspiracy, because I tried to structure this as like, here is part A, here is part B, and then here's where they intersect to create the conspiracy.
Okay.
So here's part B. How do you feel about World War II?
You mean like in general?
Yeah, Do you think it was a good time, bad time?
I think it was actually the worst time that's ever existed.
Yeah, probably. So let me tell you about our boy here, Eric Traub. Or Traub, I don't know. Quote, here's his title. Here's a little title that I gave him because I thought you would like this. Biological Warfare Mercenary.
Oh, that's like Apocalypse. Biological mercenary is something I do not want to hear.
I know.
What did this person do?
Well, first and foremost, he was a big ol' fucking Nazi.
Mm.
He worked in America before the war. He attended Rockefeller University and studied virology. He was a member of the, and forgive me for butchering this because it's in German. He was a member of the Amerika Deutscher Volksbund, which translates to the German American Club, based out of Camp Siegfried in Yaphank, New York, or Yafank, I don't know. So interestingly, Camp Siegfried became the headquarters of the Nazi movement in America.
Come on.
Traub returned to Germany before the war. In 1942, he started working at Reims Island in the Baltic Sea. It was a disease research center, but it now dual-purposed as a bioweapon research facility administered by none other than Heinrich Himmler. And if you don't know who Heinrich Himmler was, he was pretty much Hitler's second in command. So, Mr. Traub was, or Dr. Traub, I should say, was had a direct connect to the bigwigs of the Nazi regime. So, here's another fucked up thing. So, unclassified documents revealed that the Nazis named their bioweapon research program Cancer Research Program to throw off suspicion.
Okay, makes sense.
Yeah, so I'm like, damn. Okay. So yeah, that's what he was doing during World War II. So the war ended. He ended up in East Germany, Soviet-controlled Germany, and he was being forced to work for the Soviets, but he was extracted by the British as a high-priority intel target because they feared he was assisting in research with Soviet bioweapons.
Oh, for sure.
Now, when they caught him, he denied this, claiming only to be working on foot and mouth disease. Right? So, You familiar with Operation Paperclip?
I'm not. What is Operation Paperclip?
So, Operation Paperclip was, after World War II, the Soviets and the Americans were immediately at each other's throats. So America launched Operation Paperclip to pretty much snatch up as many German scientists to make them come work for us.
Okay, yeah, I'd heard of recruiting Nazi scientists. I didn't know it had that sort of formality to it.
Yep, it was a full-blown operation. And
okay.
So the government pretty much gave amnesty to these to people like fucking Eric Traub, like biological warfare mercenary. They pretty much, like, first it was like, okay, we're just going to give these guys limited military custody. They're still criminals. But after that, it was like, yeah, man, you work for us under Operation Paperclip. Hey, you get, like, full-blown citizenship. We'll bring your family over here. We'll take care of you. So a bunch of these high-level Nazi scientists got fucking amnesty.
To benefit the United States. Okay.
To benefit the United States. Pretty crazy, huh? So he said he was working on hand-foot-mouth disease. So they were like, oh, we're also working on hand-foot-mouth disease. Would you like to come to Plum Island? And so Mr. Traub visits Plum Island officially 3 times during the 1950s, but Dr. Michael Carroll claims that he was there pretty much all the time. And in 1958, he was offered the position of director of the Plum Island Animal Disease Center, but quote-unquote officially declined. After this, Traub moved back to West Germany and had his own lab there, though USDA officials were known to frequently visit him there. How does that make you feel?
It makes me feel like maybe someone was doing some homework maybe some independent research.
Some assistance, yeah.
Yeah, maybe outside of United States regulations, outside of the rules and laws of the United States. Like if you do it over in Europe, where it's the Cold War, crazy things are happening in past the Iron Curtain. Who knows what he could be studying?
Oh, so you think they sent him back over to Germany to work on this shit, and that so that they couldn't be held accountable?
Yeah, my first thought is it seems pretty convenient if you're going to be working on some sus stuff that you don't want either the media or, I mean, I assume the government was all for it considering they paid the guy to come over, but they didn't want certain things either to expose or to negatively affect American citizens during this testing. But it's interesting how that would turn into what we're about to talk about, yeah.
Well, I think it's like... what's interesting to me about that is that they offered him the position of director of the board. I'm like, what the fuck? Now, while he officially declined, Dr. Michael Carroll claims, and I'd like to just emphasize there's a claim because I would not have put this in there, but this guy wrote a whole book on it that a lot of people cite. So I thought it was worth to include, but he says, he claims that research in the National Archives claims that he found 3 USDA files, 2 were labeled tick research, and a third was labeled E. Traub. And all 3 folders were empty.
So...
I have no way to verify this. Like, I can't disprove that. I can't prove that. I can't even give you a little more information for you to, like, for that to be like, oh, yeah, that's a piece of the puzzle. But I really just didn't want to shell out $8 for his book. So,
I mean, that it paints a pretty clear picture.
Yeah, if that is true,
least.
That's some pretty damning evidence, I would say. Now, here's where the intersection comes in. In the time after World War II, pretty much all of the superpowers of the world and the Allies were experimenting with biological weapons and bugs. Are you familiar with Operation Big Buzz?
Well, first off, the names for these operations are ridiculous. I don't know who's in charge of calling them that, but no, what is Big Buzz? I assume it's some kind of insect attack.
Oh, here it is. 1955, Savannah, Georgia. The U.S. government rolled up in the middle of the night to a park or parks in Savannah, Georgia, with these big old trucks filled with mosquitoes. And they just opened the door and let these mosquitoes start running wild in Savannah, Georgia. And the intent was to see how well the mosquitoes would work as a vector for a biological weapon.
And they thought Savannah, Georgia was the best place to let this test run?
Yeah, on the people.
What was the disease? Or like what were they trying to transfer?
So they didn't put the disease in it because, they care about us as citizens. So they did not put the planned yellow fever into the mosquitoes. They were just regular mosquitoes. They were just testing them. There wasn't any actual yellow fever in there, so, not really that big of a deal, right?
Is there any reported results from this test where they mosquitoes are perfect for biological warfare?
So no conclusive results, but you want to know how they gathered that information?
I do.
Government officials disguised themselves as healthcare officials in order to effectively record the mosquito bites and track their locations.
When you read and sort of hear about the ridiculous things that are going on in the post-war world, it almost seems like we've evolved out of hell, out of a sci-fi hell.
Yeah.
Like, the United States government was pulling no punches, like, 60 years ago, doing these crazy things.
Now, 1 second, I'm going to make a bunch of gross noise that isn't going to be good to hear because I got to get up and plug it in my laptop to the charger.
Gotcha.
Oh, this is going great. I couldn't even remember to plug in my fucking laptop. I got one more hot operation for you. And we're done with operation talk. Okay, can you hear me? Am I coming in crisp and clean?
What?
Can you hear me? Am I coming in good?
I can hear you now, yeah.
Alright, cool. Oh, excuse me. I just burped. Alright. Operation Big Itch.
They
were not very subtle with these fucking stupid ass operation names either. September 1954, series of tests at Dugway Proving Ground in Utah. You want to know what these tests were for?
If it's called Big Itch and it's in Utah, I'm assuming they're putting, like, nuclear mass in scorpions or something crazy.
No. Okay, so this one was to determine the coverage patterns and survivability of the tropical rat flea for use in biological warfare as a disease vector. So do you know what they were testing? You want to know what they mean by testing the survivability?
Yeah.
They jam-packed a shitload of these fleas into bombs and dropped them from planes.
Dropped the fleas?
They dropped
planes?
the fucking fleas from planes as a bomb. The bug bomb.
Have you seen some of these, like, World War II nuclear training videos where they're like, alright, troops, we're going to train on assaulting the enemy after we just dropped a bomb on them?
No, I haven't.
There's these super cool training documentaries, and they take a bunch of dudes out into the desert, drop a nuke in the sand, and then they're like, alright, boys, get in there, and they show you how to, like, assault the line after the enemy's been frazzled from a nuclear bomb.
Oh, okay.
So that's kind of what's coming to my brain right now. Like, they're like, alright, troops, we're dropping the flea bomb, so get ready. You're gonna go out there and get them.
Oh my god. Like, that's crazy.
What's the... I'm just confused why Dwight Eisenhower is like, alright, folks, we need to fund the flea bomb because we're gonna go over Moscow and drop 1,000 fleas.
Yeah, the flea bomb. Now, since I wasn't willing to purchase Dr. Michael Carroll's book, I'm assuming I'm missing the one last great piece of evidence that really makes this all the more damning. You know? Like, what happened to make it get out in 1975?
Yeah, that's what I'm curious of. Like, where's this leak?
And I don't know. You know? So, but the interesting part about Operation Big Buzz and Big Itch is that those were in 1954 and 1955, and the Plum Island Animal Disease Center opened up in 1954.
Okay, so we can see like a progression of their testing.
All this research is going on at the same time. Like, it would make sense if they were working on Lyme disease there. You know? Like, yeah, I believe it, like, because they're working on all this other bug shit.
They're like, hey,
at the same time,
releasing mosquitoes doesn't really work. Dropping fleas out of the sky doesn't really work. What if we put it into the tick? Is that what you're saying, or?
Yeah. Like it makes sense to me that they would be researching all this bug shit around the same time.
All in one time, yeah. All in one field, yeah.
And I would like to point out that Operation Big Buzz, or no, Big Itch, the bug bomb, was a success. That was a successful test. The
Good
fleas
for them.
can survive the bug bomb long enough to transmit the disease.
Oh, like they concluded it was a worthwhile strategy. Like you could drop fleas from a plane and it would still infect people.
Not that it was worthwhile, because maybe it was too expensive, or like their testing like capabilities back then were shit. So how would you know how far the bugs are gonna go after you actually drop the fucking bomb?
Yeah.
You know? So, but it was determined a success. They will survive being dropped from a bomb.
Okay.
Yeah. But I think that damning piece of evidence, if it was true, would probably be the tick research and eTrob folders that were USDA files, and the Plum Island Animal Disease Center was run by the USDA.
Well, there's that image that you have, that
The case map?
graphic. Yeah, if you can put that up like now and show people what
I will.
You're talking about. That is like it's the kind of evidence where it makes you want to believe. It's that first thing where it catches you and you go, that's
strange.
Perfect. Yeah. I don't know if people have like a sixth sense for this kind of thing, where you see something and you're like, I don't like what I'm seeing, and it's too perfect. The lineup is Lyme disease cases and what is it, like tick habitats?
No, this is just strictly a Lyme disease case map. This is cases of Lyme disease. Let me look up the year, because I don't have that. I'm not a great researcher. Lyme disease. Lyme disease case map 2017 is the first one that came up. So we'll go with that one. 2017 is pretty recent. Yeah. That one I have right there, that's the 2017 case map.
Okay.
Yep. So, and I was telling Jess about this last night, and she was trying to view this all through a skeptic's eyes, which is good to run it by her, to just see what she thinks, being hard skeptic. And she said, hey, she's like, there's such thing as localized diseases. And I'm like, okay, yeah, but if this thing evolved naturally in ticks, why is it so localized to 2 spots? You know what I mean?
And what are those? Is one spot like Connecticut by Plum Island, or what are the spots?
Like the case map, it's so localized in like these 2 areas, which is New England and then Wisconsin and Minnesota and northern Illinois.
Well, how does that line up to tick populations? Can they live somewhere that's not like these mild forested areas that are New England and sort of the Midwest?
I don't. I'm not too sure, because it's hard. Like, I don't know. I'm not an entomologist. I'm not a virologist. I'm not anyone with any sort of credentials, but this is like not adding up. Now, with where I'm at now, people say that they have ticks. Like, yeah, we get ticks down here. You just pull them off and then you're good. Okay. You know? But if you look at the map right here, you'll see these 2 smaller hotspots in Washington State and California. Mm-hmm. That's a radically different climate than Minnesota, Wisconsin, and New England.
And so, can you hit me with the case map?
Oh, yes, I can. Yeah, this case map is great. I'm gonna send it to you on Bing, okay?
Got it.
Just, yeah, you know Google. They'll fucking send a SWAT team to my house right now. Because they're in on it. Everybody's in on it. Another interesting thing I discovered when I was researching Lyme disease is that doctors studying Lyme disease frequently, they claim to be frequently investigated. And this is on a international level too.
Okay, investigated by who? Like local governments or?
Yep, local governments. Now I asked Jess about this and she's like, hey, maybe they're just shitty doctors. And I'm like, every doctor researching Lyme disease just happens to also be a shitty doctor? Okay.
Yeah.
But then she was like, oh, blah, 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 blah. Are you looking at this case map, though? What do you think?
Yeah, I'm taking a look at this case map. It looks heavily centered, like you said, northern Illinois, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Iowa, and then this huge wave over New England and sort of these central colonial states.
Exactly.
And how you see those?
So I don't know the survivability of a tick.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, or I don't know their natural habitat or anything like that, but like you look at these other states, right? You look down at the bottom, it says 1 dot placed randomly within county of residence for each confirmed case. And then look at Oklahoma. No cases of Lyme disease.
Yeah, no, it's completely like negligibly sparse anywhere south of Virginia.
Yep. West Virginia. No, that's Kentucky. My bad. 0 cases in Kentucky either.
Yeah.
You have a bunch of states with like 1 case. Arkansas, Mississippi, Montana.
And this is from the CDC's website.
Yes, this is from the CDC. So, that's pretty damning to me.
Yeah, I think this was the image when we were like sort of workshopping some of these theories where I was like, oh, if it was an escaped disease from the island, it makes sense that it could get heavily through New England. It could get to maybe the Midwest through land, but it's not really that prevalent anywhere else.
Yeah. Now, I could see it going through like bugs. People don't really like think about this a lot, but bugs can get around, So, I don't know, maybe these Lyme ticks were bred so that they could like breed and pass the disease on. But I also don't know how ticks reproduce, so I don't know. It's pretty crazy. I think they lay eggs.
So is your working theory?
Oh, I got my working theory, my conclusion, my timeline of events. You ready for it?
Yeah.
Lyme was most likely created by the government to be used as a disease, or used as a bioweapon, with help from research. At the very least, they were helped and heavily assisted by Traub's research. At the very least,
Mm-hmm.
Why do I think it's a weapon? Well, let's go back to the beginning when I told you it's the great imitator. Right? Remember I said it was the great imitator because it mimics all these other diseases?
Hard to pinpoint, hard to lock down.
Yeah, it'd be pretty fucking useful for my bioweapon if the enemy couldn't diagnose it.
If you didn't know you were being hit with it or something, yeah.
Exactly. So they load all these Lyme disease ticks into a bomb, drop it right on Moscow, and then in like a couple months when everyone in Moscow is dying from some mystery disease, we just steamroll right through.
Or they're committing suicide, which was terrifying to hear.
Or committing suicide.
En masse. Yeah, like 10% or something, some ridiculous number that you gave.
Yeah, 1,200 of the 30,000 cases a year.
Okay, so definitely not 10. Don't take my math word for that, but
so that's pretty damning evidence to me that this was a weapon. Not evidence, but that makes sense to me.
Yeah.
And so they create Lyme. They never decided to utilize it because maybe they couldn't. Maybe the data from Big Buzz was useless. Maybe they didn't decide to go through with Big Itch, the bug bombs, because it was too expensive, not reliable, whatever. For some reason, the U.S. just decided to abandon these bug-borne bioweapons. Maybe they didn't want to get charged with war crimes. Who knows? Not wanting to risk an outbreak of Lyme or anyone to get Lyme disease. I don't know what they were calling it before it was Lyme disease, but whatever. They decided to just keep the research there under wraps until they figured out what to do with it, right? So remember I said in 1971 the Plum Island Animal Disease Center opened up labs in schools for veterinarians to educate them on foreign animal diseases?
Yes.
So maybe, here's what I'm thinking, is when they stopped doing all their secret under wraps Nazi-backed research there and opened it up for something actually useful for veterinarians, right? I'm thinking that maybe they let their guard down, maybe they slipped somewhere in that time something got out of control. And these ticks just latched themselves on to someone, some employee, some veterinarian, something. And they caught the ferry back with the employees because it's an hour boat ride back to shore. And
some kind of outbreak or some kind of release.
Yeah, boom. Like, that's when it started. You know? Because in 1971, that's when they started to get more foot traffic there, more people there, maybe relaxed a little bit because they weren't doing top secret research there anymore.
Someone gets... do you know if Lyme disease only spreads through, like, a bite? Can it be... I don't know, like human to human, or is it just through...
Nope, strictly a tick-borne infection.
That's crazy.
Yep. And so, not wanting to face any public outrage, the government just decided to deny everything. And, yeah, that's what I truly think happened with Lyme disease.
Okay.
How's that sound to you?
It sounds like...
What do you think?
It sounds like there's too many polite coincidences.
That's what I was saying too.
And even if the government didn't exactly build a super bioweapon, there's gotta be something with like the Plum Island Nazi research that even if they didn't build the disease, that's not a clean slate for the United States, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, their hands aren't clean, even if they like I don't know exactly how large of a role Mr. Eric Traub had in this, because maybe he was on an Operation Paperclip contract, so they were like, hey, you're working on foot and mouth disease? Come over to Plum Island, check out we have a foot and mouth disease center over there. But he was also working on biological weapons, you know?
Previously, yeah, in Europe.
And we still don't, this is going to sound very, very fringe conspiracy, but, we don't control the flow of information. But it's very convenient that Dr. Traub was working on foot and mouth disease for the Soviets in Russia. Now, if I know anything about the Soviets, I don't think that, I don't think they care too much about, foot and mouth disease. I'm sure they were working on it, but, you have the top fucking, Nazi bioweapon virologist, and you're putting them to work on foot and mouth disease.
When you could ostensibly be making something bigger, badder, more...
Yeah, and we conveniently come here like bring him here to our foot and mouth disease center and be like, oh, he might not have been working on foot and mouth disease at all. That's just what they're saying.
That was the cover, the story.
The cover story, exactly.
For sure.
So I don't know. There's just a lot of good coincidences here that I think that we don't know everything about this story.
And Lyme disease continues.
And Lyme disease
to
continues
be a problem,
to this day.
Yeah. I sent you the article the other day about how some antibiotic or something is just starting to emerge to cure Lyme disease.
Yeah, so they're still trying to find a permanent fix for Lyme disease today. It's pretty crazy. How do you feel about this? Are you turned? Do you think it was a conspiracy?
I think, especially with the nature of this show, that it's sort of like presenting a case, laying down the groundwork for people to begin to look or to open their eyes. It was definitely it had enough compelling points where I would now look at it in a different way. I would now believe it's time to do some independent research,
Okay, good, because I felt like I was looking at all my information. I was telling it to Jess last night, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna look like a fucking idiot today. I was I don't have enough.
You thought you cracked the code?
No, I didn't think I cracked the code. I didn't think I had anything. I
don't think this has to be a crack the code type of deal, but just sort of to be the original laying of the argument, I think is enough.
Just to present hey, maybe we don't know everything.
And if you were going to tell me that the United States government was irresponsible after the Cold War, I'm already halfway ready to believe you.
Oh yeah.
Knowing all of the sort of science fiction ways they tried to push back against the USSR. Yeah. No, I'm willing and able and ready to believe. What do you do with this information now? How do you go forward knowing or believing the government easily and happily creates diseases?
Well, I think my plan from here is to just tell everybody I see, anytime ticks are brought up in conversation, I'm immediately just going to go into my wallet, unfold all these wrinkly papers that I bring with me everywhere that's just pretty much my Lyme disease thesis, and pretty much just educate them, shove it down their throat if I have to, and, take the fight, really just take the fight to them. Stand outside the DMV shouting about Lyme disease. I'm not going to let this go. They will pay.
Do you fear looking like a fool?
Huh?
Do you feel people thinking you're a freak when you tell the truth about Lyme disease?
No, they can have fun in Plato's cave.
Have no fear. Absolutely.
Wait, was that Plato's cave or was it Socrates' cave?
I get what you're going for, though.
Yeah, have fun in the cave, you sheep. Enjoy it while I'm out here with the truth. Now, I think with that, I'm ready to never fucking talk about Lyme disease again, because that was way too much research into it.
Do you feel like you're in school right now? You just gave a 45-minute, 50-minute report on Lyme disease.
Fuck it, yeah. I think with that, I presented first. I'm probably going to get those 2 points extra credit. So now I just get to relax the rest of class and listen to whatever you've brought to the table. So
awesome.
Let's hear it.
Perfect. So when we had spitballed the making of this show, you had said conspiracies or cryptids.
Oh yeah.
And I knew you wanted to do a conspiracy first, so I thought I'd spice it up.
Yeah, I like the dynamic, because I definitely think that a conspiracy is going to take longer to present than a cryptid.
Yeah.
So I like that we can have both in the same episode, a conspiracy and a cryptid. So that's pretty good. I like that.
And for a first episode, I didn't want to bust out government cloud like weather altering clouds.
The
I didn't want to
chemtrails,
go
huh?
crazy.
The chem spots.
I didn't want to go nuts round one.
Yeah. Yeah.
And even like you had approached this first conspiracy from a personal place of believing. Do you find that you would maybe research something and present something that you didn't exactly 100% believe in the future?
Yes, and
Okay.
I think I'm going to try, if I do that, I'm going to try and present it in the same tone and not,
Not a
because
skeptic.
I believe a conspiracy, so I'm not better than anybody else who believes a conspiracy now.
Awesome. Okay.
So
So-
fuck it.
Yeah, I decided to take it in a different direction. So have you ever heard of the Honey Island swamp monster?
No, I am not. Other than when you told me that that's what you wanted to bring to the table, but when you told me, I was pretty excited.
Okay, great. Because I'm not... I don't have, like, a box set. Like, I'm not out here taking photos on the lake looking for creatures, but I'm pretty hype for any kind of cryptid type story. It kind of gets my heart fluttering a little bit.
Oh,
So-
yeah.
The reason I chose the Honey Island Swamp monster is due to your proximity to this beast.
Oh, how close.
It lives in the swamps to the northeast of Lake Pontchartrain in Louisiana,
Oh, okay.
which we both know is the most cursed body of water in the United States.
Yes, look that up for yourself, audience. Lake Pontchartrain, fucking cursed.
So,
Actually, let me
also-
interject again. Matter of fact, the whole state of Louisiana, fucking cursed. This is a cursed place. We have no business being here. It's horrid. Yeah. Don't go to Louisiana. And if you're in Louisiana now, leave.
and I find it interesting because this one's also has a bit of a non-traditional origin story. It's not like this creature's lived here its entire like history of Louisiana. It's not like this is a naturally occurring beast. They said no, this thing was first really started to be spotted in the 60s.
Okay.
So, a man named Harlan Ford is an ex-air traffic controller, and he likes to go hunting in the swamps. Like, he gets his
Okay.
boat, and he has a friend. And he reports the first sighting of the Honey Island swamp monster to make official records.
Mm-hmm.
He describes it as a large, Bigfoot-esque creature with 3 sharp webbed toes.
Oh.
7 foot tall, and every person who sees it describes this stench of death on it, that it has this horrible smell.
So
So
it
first-
smells like ass. Can you give me that description again? What does it look like?
A large, Bigfoot-esque creature with webbed toes. It is also
Webbed feet. Okay.
been given the moniker the Louisiana Wookiee.
The Louisiana Wookiee. Oh, yeah.
So I brought a bunch of visual aids, so feel free to put these in. I'm going to start sending them through.
Oh, hell yeah. Let's see them.
So here's the first image.
Oh, okay.
Can you describe what you see?
Yeah, I mean, he's furry. He's furry. He's got the webbed feet, so that's pretty cool. Because
Yeah,
I've
it's-
never heard of like a Bigfoot-like creature with like webbed feet, so that's pretty cool. His head is like sunken in, and his neck is like long, so that his like head is level with his shoulder.
So does this beast remind you of any creatures you might find in a swamp naturally?
No, Not really.
Interesting.
because
Interesting.
all that's in the swamp really is like gators. That's it.
A gator, you say? Interesting. So, as I said, Harlan Ford, he's an ex-air traffic controller, and he's
Okay.
now a sort of amateur wildlife photographer.
Okay.
he goes into the swamps, and he says that he finds this creature leaning over a swamp boar, or like a pig.
Oh, yep.
Like,
you know what? I forgot about that one. There are wild boars out here.
slits its throat and is like eating it. And as it sees Harlan, it makes its first escape. So that's the first official sighting. So he, spreading the myth, living his life, he comes back a decade later and he finds a line or a group of boars with all of their throats cut.
Oh.
And he's like, he concludes it's too far away for like an alligator to reach it. And he also thinks it's weird that, just the throat gets cut. But while he's there, he gets a number of footprints. He has a bunch of casts.
Okay.
So this is when the story starts to build some momentum, when these foot casts start to get spread around the community.
Huh. That's pretty sick, actually. You don't get a lot of foot casts anymore.
Well, there's also, I'm going to give it to you now, a video of the creature.
Oh, a video.
So I'm just going to give you the screenshot. We can find the video in post and send it on over, but that's the screenshot where the creature appears running through the woods.
Huh.
And it's localized to this swamp area. I believe it's the Honey Island Swamp.
Okay.
And it has since become this almost tourist attraction. People do nature tours and they sort of try and find this creature out there, and they've embraced the local culture. But in doing a little research, I found that there's been a creature like this in the Louisiana culture for a long time now, like in that sort of area. The natives of the area have a letiche, they've called it.
Letiche.
I'll attach you an image of that I found.
Oh boy.
And this creature is said to be either a child who is abandoned and raised by alligators, and it becomes this half alligator, half human hybrid creature like Tarzan.
Yeah.
Or the Catholic or the religious sort of bastardization of the myth is an unbaptized baby's soul escapes into the swamps and becomes one of these creatures. Yeah.
That's insanely cool.
But my favorite one, and the reason I thought it would pair well with the Lyme disease episode, is there's a prevailing theory of this first instance of this creature, because there's reports of multiple people, they live together. There's a couple of these creatures in the swamp.
Oh, okay. There's a pod.
Yes.
All right.
It says that there was a train in the early 20th century going over the Pearl River area just north of the swamp.
Uh-huh.
And it was a circus train. And there was this huge accident. It crashes, derails, and a number of chimpanzees escape. They interbreed with the alligators in the swamp. No. And they become the Honey Island Swamp Monster.
Gator monkeys. Jesus Christ.
Mind you, all the articles I read specifically note it is impossible for monkeys and alligators to breed. All of them say it, and I'm like, thanks for that. But
or so we thought.
Yeah, or so they want you to believe.
That's crazy. I will have to ask my buddy, a very, very, very good Louisiana native of 27 years, and also a Louisiana Native American. So I will have to ask him about the letiche, because I did not know that ran deep. Because there's a bunch of just one-off story very, very, very local legend Bigfoot monsters. You remember around where we grew up, DuPont Road?
Yeah. Is there
there's the DuPont monster.
What the fuck is the DuPont monster?
Yeah, he's just another Bigfoot. Like, there's not much news on him, but people have seen, apparently, Bigfoot on DuPont Road.
I love these like localized cryptids. These sort of like our backyard monster type stories.
Yeah. So, you know, like, there's not much information on the DuPont monster other than it's the DuPont monster. But this one had a lot, like, it had a really good story for being, like, a very local thing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's pretty cool. I didn't know about that one either. Now, I knew about the Rougarou in Louisiana.
Yeah, there's a couple of connections or a couple of sort of what's the word? Similarities to the
Yeah.
Rougarou.
Yeah, and the Rougarou, honestly, kind of lame. He's just a French werewolf.
Yeah, it's the werewolf.
But, yeah, I mean, that's pretty cool. Now, during the rest of my time in Louisiana, I do want to go check out all the crazy ass, haunted ass, cryptid shit they have here. Because let me reiterate, this is cursed land. We should not be living here.
Yeah, Louisiana is as close to living in like Bloodborne as I think you can get in the continental United States.
Yeah, it's not great. Like, this land was not meant to be tamed. There's still wild horses, wild boars, alligator. Yeah, it's not to talk bad on all of our Louisiana listeners, but this place is cursed. It's not great. Yeah, takes a hardy man to live out here.
But when it comes to sort of the cryptid versus conspiracy nature of the show, like what is your relationship with on the belief side? Like, I think it's easier to lend a little bit of faith to the United States doing some foul play research in the 70s versus I think some monkeys fucked an alligator in the swamp in the 60s.
So listening to cryptid stories is great because they're usually more entertaining, they're more fun, and I just love them. And then it like they just scare you a little. And I remember back when, like, I hear about cryptids and I want to go have an experience of my own with it. Like, I want to experience something. And I remember back in high school, or like the years right after high school, when we would just drive around our town at like the oddest hours of the night, like 1 a.m., 2 a.m., 3 a.m., just like, all right, show me the Mothman. Show me
Where
the
is
DuPont
he?
monster. Yeah. So that's like, that's what I like to do. That's the experience I'm looking to get out of a cryptid. I like going cryptid hunting.
Did we see a demon dog one time driving home late at night from college? Do you remember that?
Yes, I do remember the Hellhound.
Where it was like it's a 6-hour drive home, and we were on like 5.5, and in the middle of the street, this man is just like standing there with his demon dog.
Yes. Yes, and at that time we were talking about your night terrors. So we were both a little on edge.
When the spirit's in you, when like you're in that mood, sort of feel scared. That's the best.
That was the only time I've been scared as shit before, but that was the only time I can think of that I audibly screamed in fear. That was a terrifying experience. Let me reiterate, folks. Let me tell you something, folks. The nightmare zones, they're real. There are places on this earth that are just naturally cursed. The nightmare zones. I'm sure you've been through one. I'm sure you've been to one. You might even live in one. But about like 30 miles south of our hometown, there's just the nightmare zone.
You can just feel it.
Yep.
It's something in the air, in the feeling, yeah. What do you
Do
say?
you remember when we were driving home? We got to the nightmare zone. This was a separate time. We didn't see Demon Man. We didn't see his dog either. But we were just driving by. We see one truck in the middle of a cornfield with its bright ass lights on. And there's a dude standing in front of his truck just digging in the middle of the field with a shovel.
Yeah. Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
And it's so much worse because if I don't know if I can lift the veil a bit, but the cornfields around where we lived were the places where Al Capone buried his bodies. Like,
Yep.
documented, he would come out into the cornfields and find shitty, secluded Chicago suburbs that nobody wants to go to hide his murders. So I was already, like, suspecting there's some bones in the corn.
Yep. Stay on the lookout for the nightmare zone, folks. They're real. You might be living in one right now. We'll have to do a video on our own experiences, or we'll have to do an episode about our own encounters and experiences, because I've had a couple, you've had a couple, we've had a couple together.
For some reason, terror seems to follow us.
I've worked at a nightmare zone, a haunted water park. Oh yeah.
Yeah, I do know a man who. Are you familiar with the Hellhound myth?
The Hellhound myth.
Okay, I'll take that in for another episode. I know a man who is acutely familiar with the Hellhounds.
You'll
Awesome.
You'll have to share your Cherokee experiences on here.
Jesus Christ. Bro, I don't want to talk about skinwalkers.
Oh, it'll be a good time.
Oh my god. Or like, I could do a whole day on Cherokee myth. That is so powerful.
Oh yeah. But yeah, that's about all I got. You ready to wrap this up?
Yeah, I'm fine. This was just sort of a pilot, an experiment on how we wanted to get this format out, how we want to dig and explore and share these kind of maybe either unseen or ununderstandable stories. Yeah.
All right then. Well, I think that's going to do it for us this week. Tune in next time. I don't know what we're bringing to the table. It'll be a surprise for you. It'll be a surprise for us as well. But until then, stay safe. Don't forget to go to your local DMV and convince them that Lyme disease is real. Christian, you have anything?
Stay curious, friends. Keep your eyes open.
Keep your eyes open. Stay out of the nightmare zones. Goodbye, everybody.
Good night.